joining us. Welcome back to the Influencers Journey Show. Our topic today is what every superachiever needs to know when they are frustrated and want to quit. My name is Suzanne Hart. This is the beautiful Taria Hodge. And do we have a conversation for you? So, Tria, how do you want to start this? What's the first thing?
Yeah, so the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to tee up the conversation because, like you said, this is a follow-up conversation that came from our last episode. So if you did not get a chance to watch last week's episode, you want to go back and watch it. It was really juicy. So one of the things that came up, in that episode was, how do you live in the delay? And so for those of you who have never heard of the term delayed gratification, I'm going to ask you, Suzanne, to start us off by giving us a definition of what delayed gratification is and why it's so necessary.
The best way to say delayed gratification is I want what I want and I want it now. That's how we feel, right? So what truly is delayed gratification? So it is the space, the gap between where you are and where you desire to be. So think about it. When you have an idea, you decide to do something, you decide that you want to learn a new skill, try something, acquire something, lose weight. I'm gonna stop there. Lose weight, yes, it applies. Expand your business, move your income, all those things. That's where you're starting. It's a desire, it's an idea, it's a want. I'm gonna take that back. It's a desire.
It's a desire.
Right? Then you cast a vision and you see down the road. So you're starting in this place and you cast a vision and you see all the possibilities that come with achieving it. That's the pull. However, in between where you're starting, who you are, and the pull, the destination for many people, the vision you've casted for your life, in between there is this space, a gap. I like to say delayed gratification is what happens while we're mining the gap, moving through that space to the other side. Now, this is the thing. The space is filled with bumps and bruises, delays, fall downs, upsets, steps backwards, forward, get off track, all those things. And many of us, when we find ourselves feeling off course, there's a lot of emotion. So the delay is the gap between where you are and where you desire to be.
And this is so good because I'm just going to say this. Being in the space of, first of all, being a coach and working with coaches and consultants, I don't think that there's a more glaring example than that. So it's that thing, right? Where everyone, when they make the decision to start their business, what they envision is the instantaneous success. So everyone thinks that when they go ahead and they step on to this entrepreneurial journey, everything is supposed to automatically click and you're just a millionaire in your first 6 weeks of starting your business. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen. And so when we take a look at, and one of the things that I love that more and more people are coming forward and saying it is like, my overnight success took 10 years. My overnight success took me 15 years. And that's the perfect example of, the concept of delayed gratification. Now, also, one of the things that I love about this concept that we've been unpacking for over the past 3 years now. Oh my gosh, hold up the mirror, right? This is the excellent opportunity for you to learn because I know for me, there's so many things that I've learned, in, like you said, in the gap.
Yeah.
And so it's about being where you are and looking at the thing that you desire. Do you know everything that's required to get you to what you desire? And oftentimes the answer is no. So you don't know the physical pieces. There's a lot of things to learn. It was like, I didn't even know that was a part of it.
Yeah.
but you wouldn't know until you step on to the journey. Because
Right.
it's just be honest. There's a lot of things that people just don't talk about. They just don't tell you. They tend to stay and tell you about the good things, but the messy parts, the ugly parts, they don't discuss it. And then another thing that I started to take a look at is, oh my gosh, how am I required to grow in the delay? So there's things that I need to learn externally, and then there's things about myself that I'm learning. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that that existed. I didn't know that
Mhm.
that was an opportunity for growth. So understanding the concept
Yeah.
of delayed gratification and what it means, it's so, I mean, it's so juicy. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's
So,
talk. Oh,
oh,
go ahead.
go
Go ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let's talk about who you're required to be or who you're being
Hmm.
in the delay that might be creating your frustration. And this for me was um, the aha. And so who I am being will decide everything. So I know, remember, I started the show with I want what I want and I want it now. And that's impatience, Suzanne, which is my nature.
Hmm.
And now there's a beautiful side to impatience is that it drives me. I want it. There's a not so beautiful side to impatience is I want it now. This is the interesting thing, and let me start with a question. I'm going to ask people to be candid. Put an answer in the comment section. When you're in the delay and you're not getting what you want, who do you show up as? That's
Mm.
the big question. Who do you show up as? And so for me, I showed up as impatient.
Mm.
I showed up as frustrated. I showed up as the victim. Somebody didn't tell me something.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I showed up as this is hard.
Oh yeah.
I showed up as I'm just going to take my ball and go home. I showed up as avoidance. I showed up as all these things. And what was really interesting was I wasn't really paying attention to who I was being, and who I was being was exacerbating the
Hmm.
feeling of delay. I also held the delay as this bad thing that was happening to me. I want you guys to get this. Does that make sense? So I was holding the delay as this horrible thing that was happening to me. And while I was in the delay, let's just fuel it and make it worse. I would compare myself
Oh.
to everybody who not telling everything. And I say that because what I mean by that is I would compare myself to my friend who seemed to go from zero to hero in
Hmm.
10 minutes and all those different things. And I'll never forget, I had a conversation with a beautiful woman by the name of Carolyn Rodriguez. I was in the middle of my own little pity party because my delay was like a year and I was in upset.
Mm.
And I watched my girl go from zero to multiple six it felt like a blink of an eye. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Because I'm thinking I'm as talented as her. I
Mhm.
know what she know. Da da da. I'm in that place. And I remember having the most beautiful conversation with with her having this most beautiful conversation. And she said, Suzanne, you met me 10 years in.
Mhm.
10 years in. And she said, so there's some dues I've paid that you haven't paid yet. There's some lessons I've learned that you haven't learned yet. And she said, and there's connections that I've made, 10 years worth of connections that you haven't made yet. And she said, this is your time to do the work.
Yeah.
Okay, really?
Mhm.
So what happened for me was that I had this aha about who I was being in the delay. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is who you being? Because who you show up as and who you choose to be while you're in the gap will determine how you experience the gap.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
yeah, I love that. That is so good. And so I'm just going to add, one more. to the list of all the things, because all the things that you mentioned, I think, yeah, definitely, done that. But one of the things that stood out for me is equating the delay to personal failure.
Mm.
So that's how, I used to hold things. So it's like, you set out to do something or achieve a goal, and you don't hit the goal on the first time around, then you make it make mean, you know, so much more than it really is. And then I went into the headspace, or I used to go into the headspace like, oh my gosh, it's me. Everybody else can achieve it, and I can't get it. I won't ever get it. Blah, 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 blah,
I'm
blah,
not good.
blah,
I'm not
blah.
good
I'm
enough.
not good enough. All of this, and
I'm
just
not smart enough.
and making it as a personal affront. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you and I'm not going to speak for everybody else. When I get into that headspace, just imagine the energy and the attitude that I now have in pursuing the goal. It's no longer fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then, hence, the wanting to quit, or
And
the
it
wanting to give
or
up and
or it,
abandoning your
or it
goal.
becomes really hard.
Yeah.
Right?
And so, one of the things that I've had to learn is that it's not personal. It's not that Taria is a bad person. It's not that I'm not smart. All of the things that I used to make it, no, you just didn't hit the goal. Just look at the facts on the paper. What what did you do? What didn't go the way it was expected? What did you learn? And then how can you course correct and just go at it again? So that was the biggest, aha for me, is how I hold things in the delay. And it's that remembering, no, it's not personal. It's not a personal attack on me.
Mm-hmm. So let's unpack that a bit. So remember, we started this part of the conversation about who you are deciding to be in the delay, and that is everything,
Hmm.
right? So in mindset, in my world of mindset, I have a success equation, and one of the components in it is attitude. So we have our skills, we
Hmm.
have our habits, our character, and then we have our attitude. Attitude is everything. Attitude is the energy to which you bring to the space, the vibration, way of being. And so, what I had to get present to was I was allowing my circumstances to determine my energy and my attitude. I want you guys to get this. I was allowing my circumstances to determine my energy and my attitude. This was the major shift for me, was that can I show up with a winner's attitude no matter
Hmm.
what the circumstances say? Because if I can't, then the things beyond my control will always be determining how I show up.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. So imagine, you know, traffic will determine how you show up. A conversation with a stranger will determine how you show up. This didn't happen fast enough will determine how you show up.
Yeah.
So part of it was I had to really learn how to manage my energy and manage my attitude
Yeah.
in order to show up differently. However, it's a little deeper than that. Because in
Mm.
order to manage my energy and my attitude, what I really had to look at was how was I holding the delay? Because how I hold the delay will determine who I show up as. So last week we talked about we create through language. So what I realized was I was holding the delay as this horrible thing that was happening to me. That meant that I was not smart, that it was too hard, that it wasn't happening quick enough, that it was unfair, that why did someone else get it quicker than me? I had all these things. That's how I was holding the delay. So therefore, that's how I saw my situation, because that's the lens to which I'm seeing the world. What I was required to do, Taria, was to ask myself, what is it about this delay that might be good, and hold
Mm.
it differently? right? What is it about the delay that would allow me to hold it differently? So that's where I want to dive next.
Hmm. Go ahead.
So for me, it was, can I look at this delay differently and can I define it differently? So when I think of delayed gratification now, I go, it's the gap between where I am and where I need to be. However, I am going to mine the gap for treasures. And the treasures will help me become the person that can receive the miracle
Yeah.
that I envisioned.
Yeah.
So, what it began to happen for me was that every time I had a roadblock in the gap, I'd say, oh, there's something I need to learn.
Yeah.
And I'd go learn it. When I met something that rubbed me wrong, I'd ask myself, who am I required to become? And I'd become that. When I met someone or I found a deficit, I'd go, who am I required to meet? And I'd go meet that person. And
Hmm.
what I began to realize was mining the gap was vital.
Yeah.
And rather than being upset about being in the gap, it was really about mining the gap for my benefit.
Hmm.
What am I supposed to learn? Who am I supposed to become? Who am I supposed to meet? What skill do I need to require? What asset do I need to have? How do I need to shift? How do I need to grow? How do I need to position myself? All these things. And the thing that really struck home for me in my conversation with Cindy was, I said, if you got what you wanted right now, would you be ready? Her answer was no.
Yeah.
And I said, that's the purpose of delay. She said, I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle the thing. All of us, we want what we want now. But if you were really honest with ourselves, if you went from zero and no business acumen to $1 million a year, would you actually be ready? It's a great fantasy. However, I wouldn't have the infrastructure. I wouldn't have the skill set. I wouldn't have all these things. The delay is the place where transformation happens,
Yeah. I,
right?
I absolutely love it. So that's the thing. So how do we use the delay to our benefit? And so I'm going to go back and use the example of building your brand. And how do you use social media to do that? So in the beginning, I talked about, yeah, when I first started doing videos, I, people said videos is a thing that needs to be done. Okay, I get it. I understood it conceptually. I did.
Mm-hmm.
But was I that person who would jump at the opportunity to turn on the camera? No. I'm the behind the scenes girl. I could support the heck out of anybody behind the scenes. But for me to show up and do it myself, no, I didn't want that responsibility. I didn't want to have to do that. And then I started, and I remember, oh my gosh, I couldn't even go back and look at the
Oh,
videos.
I know that one.
It so horrible. I can't even say in my mind they were horrible. No, they just were terrible. But the thing about it is, I kept going. And one of the things that I realized is that every time I turn on my camera, it gave me the opportunity to get better.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the skill that I'm required to learn, or the skills that I'm required to learn, and how can I start to implement those things? And so, here's what's really cool about that. It's always building on the journey. And so as you continue, you start to take a look at all of these little areas. So I remember I stayed in the just the technological piece of it. And then I got to the point where now how do I get better at speaking?
Mm-hmm.
And so as you meet people, they tell you, hey, you need to watch this. These are the conversations. I'm being totally transparent. These are the conversations that you and I, have all the time. There's always the little things for us to work
Mm-hmm.
on, because it's not just doing a video for doing a video sake. There's a bigger vision.
Well, I think it's doing a video and then mining the gap in after doing the video. And mining the gap is looking for, where do I need to learn?
Right,
Where can I improve? Where can I do this thing much better? And
right.
that's the delay. And so I want everyone to think about people who are highly successful, and they say, if I lost it all today, I'd have it back in a year. I'd
Mm-hmm.
have it back in
Yep.
2 years. The reason they are able to say that is because they have mined the gap.
Yeah.
And the gap has taught them things that have really nothing to do with the goal, because it's really around the becoming in the gap, the
Right.
transformations that happen in the gap. So when they end up on the other side, they arrive feeling 10 feet tall and bulletproof about this thing that they are acquiring.
Yeah.
So here's the big piece that most of us don't get as we run from the delay.
Yeah.
Your confidence about who you be around whatever that thing is gained as you go through the delay and you mind the gap.
Yeah.
Your belief in yourself and how you can achieve this thing will occur as you mind the gap.
Yeah.
Your self-worth will increase every time you overcome something that can only be found in the gap. And this is the other thing. Opportunities will become available when you are in the gap. So we want to race through it. Imagine, so without being in the gap, Tria and I would not be in collaboration,
Yep.
right? Because she had a question that needed answering, and in her mind, I had the answer. I required a service, and she could deliver it. How the conversation started was because she had a gap.
Yeah.
And so she was looking for, how do I fix this thing, in her height of frustration. And that began a journey, right? The person who introduced the two of us, I was her client because I had a gap. And I was in the gap and I needed this thing filled, and she had the answer. And therefore, I met her. We collaborate now continuously. I just came back from Dubai with her. And so these
Yeah.
opportunities happen as we're on the journey, but we want to rush through it
Yeah.
and just get to the other side. There's beauty in that space.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, is all in the attitude on how you hold it. And so that's why I love the question, who are you required to become? And so every time in one of those positions where I feel impatient, or there's something that, oh my gosh, I want it now, who am I required to become to be the person to acquire that? And
Mm-hmm.
then it shifts the attitude, because now I have a different focus. I have something else, to go learn, and something else to work on. I remember, like you said it before, I remember having a conversation with you and Yetta. One of those days I was in tears over something, and I just remember the both of you are like, oh my gosh, you just started to implement this like last week. Are you serious? Did you think he was really going to get it in a week? And in
Mm-hmm.
my mind, the answer was yes. Like, why can't I get this? And to hear, both you ladies say, no, it took me 10 years to get to this point. It took me 20 years. I've been, in this practice for this amount of time. It was just like, oh, so I had to go readjust my attitude
Mm-hmm.
around it.
There's a great question coming from Cindy, and she says, how do you know you are mining the gap?
Mm,
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, so for a few things for me, one is, I I will say to you, when I'm mining the gap, there's this dance between fear and excitement. And it
mm,
truly is a dance. I'm nervous, I'm a little fearful, and I'm excited with anticipation. And I waver back and forth. The other clue that I'm minding the gap is my temptation is to avoid. Now,
That's
I
a
want you
good
guys to hear this. My temptation. It's not that I'm avoiding, it's my temptation is to avoid.
one.
The other way I know I'm minding the gap is I have to constantly remind myself that one, the how is none of my business. And only when I'm in action will I learn what I need to do next. And I really have to consciously like remind myself. When I'm in the gap, it's this dance between, I don't want to use the word struggle, but it is this dance between success and failure, success and failure, success and failure. Because
Mhm.
as I fail, I pick something up. It creates a bit of a success, and then I go again, and then I mess up or I go in the wrong direction. I backtrack. I go again, and when I'm minding the gap, it's that sort of thing. When I am minding the gap, what's really present to me is I'm excited about who I am becoming. When I'm not minding the gap, I am flat. I want you guys to hear this. I am flat. There's no energy. There's negative energy. Um, it doesn't feel good. And when I say it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel good in the soul of who I'm being. I'm not feeling good about me. When I'm
Mhm.
minding the gap, it may be challenging, but I feel good about me.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. You feel alive because there's so much that you're learning. And like I
Mm,
said, the new things, the things that you haven't considered before are now in your purview. So it's just like, oh, I didn't know this. Now I gotta go learn this. Oh, now I gotta go ahead and do this. And you're right. So often, people try to avoid. I've heard people even say that as entrepreneurs. Oh, I don't want to do this. I want to outsource everything. Outsourcing is a thing, but there's some things that you just can't because you miss the opportunity to learn and grow,
mhm.
in that area. So it's like you can't miss the opportunity to learn something, or like you say, I always say, like, to pick up the lesson. So
Yeah.
I love it.
And let's talk a little bit about outsourcing because this is a great thought.
Mhm.
One of the questions I'm always asking myself because I'm the queen of outsourcing. You know,
Yes.
I like to do what I do, speak, train, write. When I'm outsourcing, I really am required to ask myself, what's the motivation behind this?
Mhm.
One, because I can outsource because of avoidance. Two is, do I, this is the key question, do I understand enough about this to outsource it?
Yes. That's the point.
Right? And so in my gaining the understanding might put me in the gap for a moment and may put me in discomfort. However, one of my biggest learns is I must understand enough about this so I can outsource intelligently and I can ask the right questions as I outsource. It's the dance. So part of it is when you're willing to pass something over to someone, ask yourself why.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
why? Is this like truly a time management, manage yourself in time, make yourself more powerful move? Or is this, I don't want to learn, I don't want to see, I don't want to do
Right.
solution?
Right. And that's the thing. No, and I'm not knocking outsourcing, because definitely, that's, part of my business. That's what I do. But not because something, it's hard or challenging, you don't take the step to understand it. It doesn't mean that you stay in that forever, but give yourself the opportunity, to grow, to learn. That way you could kind of manage that a whole lot better. You know what you're looking for versus someone telling you what you should, you should be doing, or you should have, and you haven't put any energy or thought behind of it. So that was one of the things that just came, to
Yeah.
mind when we was talking about that, because I know some people, man, if they could outsource themselves, they surely would. And I was like, well, where are you in your business? You can't do that.
So I wanna talk a little bit about and this just dropped into me, Tria. So
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna put it in the space. I want to talk about when you can't adjust in the delay.
Mm.
Right? So for me, I have met times in my life where I'm in the delay or I'm in something and I can't make the attitude adjustment. It's just not happening.
Mm.
Uh each and the delay becomes painful. And I want to make this distinction because how many people are out there doing things, jobs, on learning curves that they have no desire to be in,
Mm.
right? I've been doing this so long and I'm afraid to move. And now they've given me a new project and I have to learn something, but I have no desire to be here. I've been in my business and someone suggested that I do this thing. It doesn't even crank my it doesn't melt my butter, it doesn't crank me in any
I like that. I gotta use that.
part,
It doesn't melt my butter.
right? How many of you have been in that experience? So if you're in the delay and you cannot shift, you really want to ask yourself, are you doing or pursuing the right thing?
Mm.
Or are you just doing this because it's safe because you want to avoid the real delay? And the
Ooh.
real delay is the thing you're supposed to be doing and you're supposed to be aiming at, the thing that's in your heart and you know you should be aiming at. But no, you're going to aim over here because you're comfortable. You got people around you that say this is a good place to be, and you can't shift because you're actually in the wrong place, mining the wrong gap.
Ooh. Ooh. So I kind of see it. I see that. And I also see something else, Suzanne. I see the gap and the delay. And because the delay is hard, what people go and do is go focus on something else.
Mm-hmm.
And they focus on something that has nothing to do with where they want to go.
Absolutely. And they're mining the wrong gap. And
Yes,
that
and
wrong gap is painful. And they
right,
can't shift themselves because they're actually in the wrong place.
right. And so they're going down, that rabbit hole versus focusing, because and this is why we're talking about this. We're talking about this in the vein of having a vision and then setting up your goals. So once you lay out your vision, you have your vision. Hopefully everybody has done that by now, on 28 days of the month. You laid out your goals, and now you have your action plan. The key is to ask yourself the question, are the things that I'm doing, are they keeping me on the path?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I getting distracted by other things because they seem easier? It's more comfortable to do those things rather than doing what I'm supposed to do that keeps me on the path to where I need
Absolutely.
to go.
So we're talking about two very distinct things, and I want to make this distinction for everyone that's listening. So there's using the delay. So you've casted your vision and you're on the path, and then you get distracted, right? And you're off somewhere else, and that somewhere else is hard, arduous, painful because you're not supposed to be there, and you got to get yourself back on track to hit your vision. That's one. The other piece I'm talking about, and I want everyone to get, is you're on the wrong path altogether. You've
Mm.
casted a vision not for yourself, but for someone else.
Ooh.
You've casted the vision you believe you should cast because that's what everybody's telling you. This is your next step in 2023. That's what you should be doing. That is the next thing. I will say to you that when you go to mind that gap, it's going to be painful, period.
Yeah.
You might have glimpses of moments. It's going to be painful because you're not in your place of passion.
Yeah.
You see, the when we make those attitude adjustments, I can make my attitude adjustment and do something I don't like. However, and I can do it with a smile, but my soul and everything inside me know that I'm off.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
am talking about minding the gap, being lit up,
Yeah.
so excited, so on fire, so filled with passion, and staying on track because you're going to mind the gap and you're
Yeah.
going to shift your attitude. There's two ways to do it, no matter what the gap is. But if you're in the wrong place,
Yeah.
that's tough.
Yeah.
And then, and so what I'm going to say to you is you're still in the delay because you're avoiding where you're supposed to be,
Ooh.
where you're called to be. You're in a chapter of your life that the door has closed, the book, they turned the page, and you're crushed under the page that's turned because you won't go into the next chapter of
Yeah.
your life and do the thing that lights you up. It's scary, and you know there's going to be a delay. That's what we're talking about. It's really about how do we manage ourselves? Who do we show up as? And do we have the courage to honor ourselves and manage our energy so that we can win?
Yeah. I love it. Ooh.